In the last 24 months, we have seen more companies that are declining in their market position and in their revenue than any time in the last decade. And the funny thing is, it's not because they're not good at what they do. It's because they're approaching digital transformation in a completely backwards way. While most companies are debating whether to transform, the market is already transforming without them. The real cost is hesitation. And it's not just lost revenue, it's the systematic erosion of the business's value in and of itself. Hey, this is Darrell Evans with the MindShift podcast. If this is your first time here, welcome. We are in part 3 of a 6-part series where we are talking with established business owners and founders about the imperative today to transform digitally and to transform now. What's fascinating with many of these companies that we're seeing declining is that they were once on the top of their game, top of their industry, and leading in many categories across the spectrum. But what's really happening in these traditional companies is 3 things. Number 1, they're failing to realize the imperative of change now. Number 2, they are failing to embrace this new modern way of growth that is here to stay. If you were early in internet in 2007, 8, or 9, you could have argued, well, we'll wait and see. Well, you can't wait and see any longer. And third, they're undervaluing the speed at which their competitors are moving in a digital-first world. Let me give you an example as we start. About 6 years ago, we worked with a company out of Texas, and for probably 22, 25 years, they were the number 1 wholesale distributor in this specific category. Now, by the time we'd started working with them, they had seen their revenue drop from about 22 million down to about 12 million. And in the year that we started working with them, they were projecting down to finish at about 10. That doesn't happen overnight. What we found were simply the same 3 items that we just talked about. They were literally not embracing the evolution and the change of how business gets done in a new modern landscape. The challenge is when you are losing those kinds of dollars and your business is eroding right before your eyes, it's difficult to take the advice of an expert who knows how to turn it around because you've lost so much energy. You've lost so much steam in the engine. And so I want to help you today to make sure you don't wait 3 to 5 years until your company's lost half of its revenue or half of its value, because there are things you can do to shift now. And let me state for the record, continuing to delay will compound the erosion that you might be experiencing now. I know it's not popular to hear, but I'm here to help you, not hype you up so I can get paid by the YouTube algorithm, okay? I'm here because I worked in the seat over the last 14 years at my company, Yoka Local, where we have helped companies do well over 300 million in revenue. And what we have seen are these types of ideas, delays, hesitations, resistance even to adopting this new modern growth economy. So let's jump into 3 very critical shifts that need to be made in this transformational world. Let's get the elephant in the room out on the table right now. Of course, if the elephant was standing on the table, it would break. But the big elephant in the room is there's a lot of discussion about digital transformation, and I'm using it here as well. But we're not talking about some hype. We're not talking about hyperbole. We're not talking about something you might be able to think about in 3 to 5 years. We are talking about 3 major shifts that are happening right now and have been happening over the last 5 to 10 years. And if you are finding yourself stuck, if you're finding yourself at a plateau or slightly declining, we're certainly not saying crashing, then here are the first 3 areas that we think you should take a look at. Number 1, and that is your customer experience. You know, I got to date back to probably 2014 when I signed up for Amazon Prime for the first time. And I think about what Amazon Prime brought to the table. It allowed us to not just, that, by the way, I signed up in 2014. That's not when Prime came out. But the first time that I ordered something and it showed up in 2 days versus 7, 10, 12, 15 days, in old traditional commerce brands, it didn't impress me right away. But as time went on, I was wondering, how did they do that, right? You might be thinking, Darrell, well, I don't compete with Amazon, so why does this matter to me? Well, it does matter to you no matter what you do. Here's about the customer experience is about how us as consumers are seeing this new modern of digital innovation affect our buying journey, affect our customer experience. And so I've got to give credit where credit is due. My former business partner, Stormy Andrews, made a comment. He said, Amazon is everyone's competitor today because Amazon has infiltrated itself into the consumer buying model in such a way that you can't unknow what you now know when you get a product that shows up in 2 days after you order it. Now, fast forward to where we are right now, and many of you who use Amazon know that there are times when you can order Amazon in the morning and it'll be there at 5 o'clock at night. You can order Amazon in the morning and it's there within hours. Like that consumer experience it's put an impression on us as buyers. And so when we look at our own business model of customer experience, are we making the moves digitally? Are we making the moves in transformation of their experience with our brand? Because if you're not doing it, your competitors are. It doesn't mean that you have to change the life cycle of production in your business. What it does mean is you need to understand that your customer is influenced by the immediacy of companies like Amazon, the immediacy of a company like Uber or Lyft, the businesses that operate like an Airbnb, where all of the friction is being removed from the buyer's process. So when we think about our businesses and we think about the consumer experience, what are we doing differently today to make our customer experience a wow experience, not just the way we've always done it? So there are 3 things that I think about in the consumer experience today, and maybe they'll help you here. And that is, where else in a digital format can you meet your customer online? You know, many brands today are meeting their customers on Twitter. They're meeting them in instant messenger on Instagram. That's one idea. You're going to say, maybe that's not right for your business. Okay, that might not be right for your business, but is it something you could consider? Number 2, are you thinking about how AI can jump into your consumer experience to add a level of immediacy, whether that's at your website, whether that's in response to an email, in your customer service environment, when your customer service environment is closed, let's say. Those are other ways you can think about adding immediacy into your customer experience. A third idea is when a customer needs data or information from you. Again, I'm going to bring in AI, because can you now build an AI system or an engine that pulls the data that your customer needs without you having to have someone on staff getting that information? Those are 3 simple examples that you could begin to consider. The point here is that, are you thinking about ways to enhance your customer experience in this transformational world today? The second big shift that I want to share with you here, again, not to piggyback on Amazon, is this idea of operational excellence. Now, I've got to shout out Brad Mishlove in this specific moment, because for the last 9 years, he's been in my ear as my business advisor, and he harps on this idea that your strength in your business's growth curve and your differentiation in the market doesn't lie so much in what happens outside that the world can see. It happens in terms of what you can do from an operational excellence standpoint. Again, we all know what Amazon is capable of, but many of you don't want to resonate with Amazon, and that's fine. But what does operational excellence look like for you? When I can think back in our company at the agency, there was a time when our agency would have 150 support tickets coming in to our agency. Now, for the size of our agency, that may not, for some of you, that might not seem like a lot. Some of you are bigger companies, you get 150 a day. Well, at that time, I couldn't rationalize what we were doing that would cause our customers to send in 150 support tickets in a month. And that number had just kept growing, and it just disturbed me. So what we did was we started looking at the data, and we're like, if they are having that many questions or challenges with the specific aspect of their business model that we were working with them on, then what could we do to not just minimize those tickets, because what every one of those tickets represented was an open loop of an opportunity to fail, an open loop for additional staff or salary that needed to be expended, an additional cost. So one of the things we thought about was, Is this operationally excellent, or can we go backwards and figure out a better way? So what we did in our case, really simply, was we analyzed and categorized what was the reason for those tickets, what was the category that they fell into, and we made distinctions and decisions about either eliminating the process of using a support ticket as a mechanism of resolution, and in that case we added an account manager to be a little bit more out in the front, or we made decisions and distinctions about whether these are actually tickets or whether they actually belong in our project management system. I know you don't work in my company, but just so you understand, we decided to say this is not an operationally excellent model, so we began attacking how could we minimize the number of tickets so we can make sure that the client gets an experience that's going to match what we want them to have and not a frustrating one because they're sending in tickets. Just as an example, here's a few other ideas about how operational excellence might find its way into your world. It could be that systems become better integrated with information that flows automatically, both internally and externally, either for your team and staff and for your outside vendors, even to your customers. It could be that there are routine decisions that become automated, which frees up humans from having to actually execute on those tasks. Today, that can be software automation, that can be workflow automation, that can be RPAs, which are considered robotic process automation, or it could be AI. Another idea could be data that drives decision making. And in our world, at least, data consumes a lot of our time trying to process through data. And now since AI has come out, allowing AI to help with this data processing has sped things up considerably, which we can then take our time forward to the customer experience. We can then take our time forward into our operational excellence. The key here isn't about just digitizing processes. The key is rethinking how work gets done here in a digital-first world. The last shift that I'd have you consider is in your market positioning strength. What is your market positioning strength as it sits right now, and what can you be doing strategically to transform how your industry, your consumer, sees you in the industry? Many of you told me that you have built great intellectual property over the years. You've got great systems and processes, and that you've had strong market positionings, which is what has led you to the level of success that you've had. But now it's important and imperative to start rethinking how we're positioning our business and how we can take what got us here and turn that into a new digital model. So here are a couple of ideas. Number one is thinking about how can you leverage your expertise in a digital channel, in digital channels, plural. And that looks like what we've talked about in other videos, but let me rephrase again here. How do we take your subject matter expertise, the specific way that you do things? How do we make sure that your way of doing things is known to your consumer and in advance of their purchase, right? And it could be those little distinctions that could align your market strength back to where it was. Many of you have competitive advantages that are just not systematized. They're internalized, but they're not systematized, and they're not out front for someone to see. That's another area that we often find that we can work with someone on, where we can push out their unique systems towards the marketplace, and the market can say, I like the way they do that. And lastly, you really can think about how you think about your market position being reinforced and backed by data. Many of you are not publishing enough data, enough proof, enough research, enough history of results so that people will come across their digital journey and come across your world and be able to know that you're not just like everyone else. You're not just another provider, a vendor, or company. There is a lack of proof of history, proof of results that we see in the digital landscape, where people are just telling people what you can do, but you're not showing them what you've done. Okay, so let's make this a little actionable and practical over the next 90 days. So in the first 30 days, what I want you to do is, of course, audit. Like, you probably get tired of hearing me saying that, but the bottom line is we don't do anything just randomly. We don't just do tactics before strategy. So it's important that we audit. What should we be auditing in the first 30 days? The first thing is we should really take a look at our customer experience. And here's the funny thing I love about customer experience is you don't ask your internal team about your customer experience, you ask your customers about your customer experience, right? So we want to get some insight on what some of those gaps could be in your customer experience. Number two, you want to really take a look at your current systems and your data flows. How are you operating internally to see where those gaps could be. Where could your teammates be getting stuck? Where could your leadership be getting stuck? Where could your customers be getting stuck in the process that you think is extremely excellent? And lastly, you could look for immediate opportunities to free up resources using automation. It doesn't mean the automation has to be implemented right away, but the question is could this be done by automation? Could this be done by AI? Could this be done by a more efficient workflow? If you're moving forward in days 60 through 90 and you've finished your audit and you've identified what we like to call those low-hanging fruits or those quick wins, then we want to start to get into implementing what I like to call minimum viable processes or minimum viable procedures that will begin to move us into this new, more efficient way of doing things. Companies generally get hesitant when there's too many good ideas on the table and they end up doing nothing, or they put a plan together to do it over the next 12 to 24 months. And I want to encourage you that you cannot afford to wait 12 to 24 months to start making these changes in your customer experience, in your operational excellence, and in the way that you've integrated data and efficiency into workflows. Of course, in days 60 to 90, it's all about looking at what we've done, where are our quick wins, and where are our real opportunities to scale and optimize. Now, I can't know exactly what your business is and what that looks like for each of you today, but as I mentioned in my agency, we spend the first 90 days working with companies on these types of things, and we work from a matter of saying, where are the opportunities that are closest to revenue, right? Because many of you are making investments, have made investments, only to not see them pan out when it comes to digital growth, digital marketing, digital transformation. And so we want to make sure we go right to where the money happens, right? We want to make sure that we can take those lean opportunities, those quick win opportunities, and turn them into measurable data and revenue so that we can continue to build, right? It's like with anything. We want to get some momentum. We don't want to send a project down the line for 12 to 24 months. I mean, we need to figure out what can we affect in the next 30, 60, 90 days, 120 days, maybe as much as 6 months. But I know most of you are not going to be so big that it takes 6 months to really start to see the effect of this. So 60 to 90 days, we're really looking at what do we do? Do we have some meaningful metrics that we can measure on and we can build on from there? Now, I know some of you are asking the question, but how do we do all of this while we're still doing what we're currently doing, right? It is very important that we make sure we don't compromise current revenue for all of these ideas. We want to make sure to protect our existing operational functionality so we don't have any declines in customer loss and customer value and in customer experience. But we also got to keep in mind that we must build for the future. As with anything, it comes down to, well, if I've got 100% of these resources available, how would I think about allocating it? And again, everything is up to subjectivity, but about 60% of your time should be thought about improving your existing operations for operational excellence, not transformation. 25% should really be about those quick wins so that we can get some leverage points so that we can build momentum from one quarter to the next and one quarter to the next. And third, we want to focus on those future-focused initiatives, those future-focused ideas. We can't stop the business right now if we were never using AI and then turn everything into an AI engine over the next 90 days. That's going to be one of those future-focused initiatives, and we still need to make sure we're intentionally allocating 15% or so, maybe 20%, depending on your numbers, into that category. So let's recap what we've talked about today. In today's market, a shift in your customer experience is critical to look at, and that's being able to look at how your competitors are interacting with your customers in ways that you are not, especially if you find yourself plateaued in revenue or even declining. Number two, we need to start thinking about our operational excellence and how are we integrating data-driven, AI-driven, workflow-driven automation so that we can move through this new digital economy efficiently, saving costs while growing revenue. And lastly, we want to look at our market positioning, right? We want to make sure we are converting our history, our uniqueness into digital assets. You know, what's really funny is most of the companies we work with that we've helped are not suffering because they're not good. They're not struggling because they weren't doing the work. They're struggling because they're obscure to the new customer who's operating on new digital channels, and you're just simply not there. And we can fix that. So I want you to remember that digital transformation isn't just about technology. Digital transformation isn't about remaking your company. Digital transformation isn't about becoming someone new. It's a shift in thinking. It's a shift in it's the little hinges that swing big doors, as they say. And eventually those little hinges become big changes in your marketplace. In the next installment in this series, I want to talk about revenue growth strategies. This is the area that most people come to our agency and talk to us about. And if you're brand new here, this is part 3 of a 6-part series. I welcome you back for part 4. And if you haven't seen part 1 and 2, check out the channel and check out both of those videos. Look, if you're the type of person right now where this video has resonated in some of these concepts and you're just wondering, you know what, it all makes sense, but I just need some help, then I'd welcome you to look in the description below, click the link, schedule some time with our team, and we'll have a conversation about what this looks like for you. I hope to see you next week.